and are clean photographs. So these photographs are the clean photographs. I don't see any blood on any of these photographs.
May I inquire as to how many photographs? What's the doctor's description? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so these are the clean photographs of the hands. So,
Are you done, Doctor?
I am.
Yes, you have a
How
question.
many photographs of the two hands are in that file?
So there's a front and back. So there's one front, one palm, and a side to show every piece of each hand to show that there's no injuries.
The question is how many photos in total of the hands are there?
So there are 6 photographs, one of the palmar surface of each hand, one of the other surface of each hand, and one of the side of each hand.
And there's no injuries on the hands.
That's correct.
We would object that it's duplicitous and it has no relevance.
Thank you. That objection is notice overruled. No photographs are, when you say they're clean photographs, there's no blood, there's no bruisiness or anything like that associated with those photographs, counsel. So the objection notice overruled.
Did your Honor rule as to the face establishing shot?
Overruled. I understand the purpose of it. It's not a gruesome photograph.
So these next 2 photographs are of the same wound. The difference is one is an orientation shot, which is this one, and then one is a close-up. If you show just the close-up so I can talk about the characteristics of that wound, there's no way for me to show where it is on the body. I can say where it is, but I can't show it. So if you want an orientation shot so you can show where it is, and then a closer shot so I can explain the characteristics of the wound, then I would say both pictures are needed.
And is that what you're suggesting, doctor, that you to show the orientation as well as to a close-up of the injury, that you need those pictures to illustrate that?
I do.
Well, thank you. And are you telling me, doctor, that you need both photographs to illustrate or explain your testimony?
I would prefer both because you can tell in the close-up that this looks like a laceration, which is consistent with an exit wound. I can explain it from this one, but you can't really see it.
Thank you.
Is the court allowing both of those photographs in?
She's saying she needs to explain the testimony. Yes, that's the way I understand it.
I believe she said she could explain it on either one of the photographs.
I can explain that it's a laceration on each one in order for everyone involved to be able to see why it's a laceration instead of, yeah, that's a laceration over there. I think we're needed.
Thank you. Objection notes overruled. Again, these photographs show depict an injury externally. It's not an internal. I don't know that they're so gruesome as to inflame the jury. Something along these lines.
I did, so the court knows, put a sticker on all of the internal injuries, I believe you're looking at right now. Correct?
Yes, sir.
And I'm standing at a distance from you because you are not in that 10-day grace period.
I'm not.
So I'm going to move a little further away.
That's fine. So normally, Judge, I would say that internal photographs are not needed. The reason that these photographs are important in this particular case is that the first shot, which was to the back of the neck, when you look at the undersurface of the skin around that injury, there's hemorrhage, which means I can tell you that he was alive when that shot was fired. The second shot, third shot went to the shoulder. The second shot that went through the heart and the left lung. The organs prove that there was no heartbeat when those shots were inflicted. So if anybody is trying to say that one shot came, he was alive when that shot was shot, and the other 2 were after he passed away sometime later, the only way to show that with the photos is to show you that in the lung, in the heart, where the projectile from the shoulder was retrieved, that there's absolutely no hemorrhage around any of those organs or wounds. Can you do it with just the lung picture? Do you need every single one of them? I mean, the heart, absolutely no hemorrhage. Your heart's got all the blood's right there. If you're alive and it's beating, it's gonna bleed.
So, I'm sorry, may I, Your Honor?
Sure, I'm trying to understand, Doctor, whether or not you need these pictures to illustrate the testimony and whether you need all of them.
If I want to show you that there's hemorrhage here, and he was alive and that's why there's hemorrhage, and there's nothing on this lung, so he's dead when that shot's fired, then I need these photographs. Can we parse it down to half of them? I mean, you want to show that there's no hemorrhage in the heart, the pathway of that bullet is the same projectile. You could show one.
So would be removing perhaps the lung photo?
I think the lung is probably the best photo of all of them because there's no hemorrhage there. I think you need the one that shows that there was a beating heart when the bullet went through the head, and at least one. I don't argue, right? I would suggest, whatever the right word is. This photograph is a projectile from the right back. No hemorrhage around it where we get it out. So that's the third shot. So one of these and one of the second shot and one of the first shot to show the difference in this is a beating heart, these are not. If that's something that needs to be shown in photographs. And how I came to that conclusion. I'm done.
Oh, interesting. Bob Mott is a criminal defense lawyer, host of Defense Diaries podcast, and Natalie Whittingham-Burrell is a criminal defense lawyer. Guys, let me go to you first, Natalie. I mean, this is literally the standard that's followed pretty much everywhere. The question becomes relevance. What is it relevant for? But by the same token, balancing not having gruesome photographs, as the judge put it, that would be inflammatory and create undue prejudice. This witness in what we call a 104 hearing, a testimony that's being done outside the presence of the jury, I thought was actually a very good witness at explaining why she needs the photographs, and even gave a little bit to say, do I need all of them? Maybe I don't need all of them, but I definitely need these. What were your thoughts?
Well, and I think the judge struck the perfect balance here because he does go on to exclude a small amount of the photographs and allow in a majority of them. It's really important not to prejudice the jury with extremely gruesome photos. Most people in the real world have no idea how gruesome and violent an autopsy can be, the way in which the body is broken down, and that can inflame the passions of the jury if they see that. And they can just look at that and say, wow, that's really disgusting what happened to this person. Maybe this guy is guilty. And so the court has to strike that balance while also allowing the prosecution to make their case for why they think that this was a setup and not a drive-by shooting, but instead people that were shot from behind and then shot outside once they were already, already deceased. So the judge struck the balance of letting the state lay their burden while also protecting Mr. Demmons from undue prejudice.
Bob, I ever hear about autopsy photos, I go back to my experiences in EMT, and I worked in many gunshot case stabbings, whatever, crime scenes and homicides. And, there was always something that was strange to me. Maybe we get one of our psychologists on the show to explain it. I had never had a problem on a scene. But when 2 days later, when the autopsy photos would come in, then the crime scene photos would come in, for some reason I had a much more visceral response to it, even though I was the one who was literally there. So that's just my own personal anecdote. You can either psychoanalyze me or tell me, what do you think of the judge's ruling?
I think it's the right ruling. Look, I mean, and I'm the same as you, Bob. I mean, I've had cases, where young children were killed violently, and like the photographs to me are almost impossible for me to look at. Like, granted, I'm not real good with blood. So going into cases where I know that there's been a lot of violence and there's a lot of bloodshed, it's always a tricky thing for me personally, just because of how I've always been growing up. But, our argument always as defense attorneys is more an issue of, is it more prejudicial than it is probative? I clearly think there's relevance to the pictures. I mean, an ME or, whoever performed the autopsy is going to have to be able to show some photographs to show where the wounds were, where the entry and exit wounds were, in order to give the jury the full picture of what happened and how this person came to be deceased. So I mean that is clearly relevant. The real question is always, how much do you show them? Is it so much that all the state is doing is wringing the pathos and drawing the emotion out of the jury by showing them these gruesome pictures, which will then be seared in the minds of the jurors throughout the course of the trial? That's that balance that you have to find in order to try to keep the kind of an even playing field, because there's not going to be a way to avoid never showing any kind of gruesome pictures, just because of the fact it's what they're dealing with the case. So I think the judge went the right way on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool. By definition, most murders, or every murder that you're going to see, are going to have gruesome photos. Got to balance relevance versus prejudicial impact. This judge seemed like he did a really good job. And by the way, I give credit to the ME, the state's witness, even though they work in an independent agency, for recognizing that this is what I need, but I don't need all this, because it would be compounding that prejudice. And you know what, guys? I think you both agree. This protects things that we worry about on appeal should there be a conviction. With that, we're going to take a break. We'll be back on the other end. Please stay with us.